This is the There Is Another Way podcast from SpencerBruce.com. Making life work as a creative. Hello and welcome to this week's There Is Another Way podcast. And this is an exciting one because we are at our 100th episode. Over the last 6 years, we have put out over 100 episodes of the There Is Another Way podcast. And boy, has it changed since its humble beginnings. But I hope that those of you who have been with us since the beginning still feel the message and the ethos of this podcast is exactly the same. The motivations are exactly the same from my perspective. I want to try and help you to be more creative and realize more than anything, there is another way. There is another way to live. We do not have to necessarily conform to the expectations of the environment and the world around us. We can make and we can forge our own path through this. That has been my overriding motivator for this podcast and the reason for turning up and doing this podcast. I want to put a massive shout out to our dedicated listeners and to all the fantastic guests who I've had on the past podcast. That to me has been a real highlight over the last 6 years, is the great inspiration that has come from all of the fantastic guests that we have had. I would urge you, if you're new to the podcast, to go back and check out some of the guest episodes. There is so much wisdom, there is so much information, and I know that you will be able to take a lot from them. So the one thing I was thinking when it came to this podcast is, what would I see as the biggest change that's happened since I started doing the podcast? And to me, there is one fundamental thing which I have been going on about for years, but particularly since the beginning of the podcast, is that more people should be working from home and working in a way that suits them. And lo and behold, we have had this. Now, I am not going to take any pleasure in the unfortunate way that this has come about due to the global pandemic and COVID. But what that has done has forced many, many people around the world, many companies around the world, to look at the fact that you can do all this work that needs to be done. There is another way to do it. You can do it from home or local. You can have a decent work-life balance. You can make all of these things work. We do not need to have millions upon millions of people cramming themselves into city centres day in, day out, miserable, spending hours commuting, putting their family and their personal lives to one side to just earn a buck. There is another way. And of course, I am not advocating that we close all offices. This is not kind of some weird agenda. It's just that balance. We can strike a balance. We can do the majority of stuff that we need to do. For those in offices, again, there's the caveat there before everyone starts shouting. I know some people need to go to a place to do work. I'm not saying that. But for millions of jobs, they can be done successfully at home or close to home, in a local environment, using the technology that we have. You don't have to be doing hours of commuting. And at the same time, whilst many of us are looking forward to that social interaction, why not have a halfway house where some days a week you maybe go into an office? You don't need to go in for 5 days a week. There is another way, and the world is slowly waking up under really unfortunate circumstances, but it's finally working up to there is another way to work. The other thing is, now that this, the light bulb has gone off for many people, and I feel like a bit of a pioneer here because I've been screaming and shouting about this for years, and to everyone going, you're nuts, that's stupid, we need to go to an office. Because we're so conditioned that being in an office and doing office and commuting, all of these things are what's expected of us. They're the norm. It's been normalized, but we're breaking away from those trends. So the next trend and the next thing I'm going to scream and shout about is universal income. Now, I'm not going to talk about that too much in this podcast now. I will save that for another podcast. But I really feel the way that the planet is going and the way that the world is going, that at some point, some brave person, some brave nation is going to stand up and look at universal income as a way of making life fairer for all of us, making us more productive, making us more creative, enabling us to have much better lives. And if you want to work, it is not a way of shirking work. It really isn't. And in a sense, in the UK now, for those who are on furlough, unfortunately on furlough, they are proving that universal income works because we are paying them and we are earning that money. We need to revisit the tax systems. We need to look at how we tax these big companies. But we can make it work. And again, I will save that for another podcast. As you can hear, these are subjects that I am really, really passionate about. But of course, I would be. That's why I created this podcast. That's why I strongly believe there is another way. The other thing that has happened with the podcast is over the years, and particularly recently, I have moved into the rebranding and the creativity Kickstarter, because I strongly believe that ideas are our future. Ideas are our currency. That is a title of a book that a really good book by Rod Judkins that I recommend reading. But it is true. We need ideas. Ideas are what make humanity. Ideas are what help us develop. They are at the very level everything we need. When you've got ideas, you can solve problems. When you've got ideas, you can create new solutions to problems. When you've got ideas, you can create wonderment. You can create happiness. Would love to hear some of the things that the creativity exercises have brought out in you. How have they helped you to do? What have they helped you to create? I would love to know. I'd love to see, hear, listen. Please do share. And if you're feeling brave, do share with the group, the There Is Another Way podcast group on Facebook, a prime place to go over there and share your work, share your creative ideas. Love to know what you guys are doing with this podcast. The other great thing coincidentally happening with the 100th episode is the first Creativity Kickstarter workshop is happening this week on Thursday. I am so excited about that. Really looking forward to meeting the people who have signed up for this. I'm really looking forward to exploring creativity with them, and then going forward running many more workshops, which I hope you listeners will be keen to perhaps sign up for or find out more information from. I have put a link in the description below of the webpage, so do head over to that. Keep your eye on that for further workshops which will be coming along. The other thing that I wanted to announce in this podcast relates to what I believe is the ultimate form of creativity. I am so pleased and proud to announce that I have become a father to my beautiful daughter, Sophie Robin. And this experience has made me question and think about so many things in relation to creativity, and looking at everything that my wife Liz went through. You know, I have to take my hat off to women all around the world. It is the miracle of childbirth is amazing, and us menfolk really do have an easy ride when it comes to childbirth. It is miraculous. It is amazing to see what the human body can do and how amazing the whole process is. And again, I look at my wife and I just think, wow, everything that you've been through, you've taken it, you've done it so well. Motherhood is such a change, but you just have adapted to it, and it's miraculous. I'm kind of lost for words. The other thing I would like to say is I would like to put a massive shout out to the wonderful midwives and nurses and doctors at the hospital. Without getting political, in the UK, we are very privileged to have the NHS. And every time you come into contact with them, you realize what an amazing organization that should be fought for, and make us so proud. They do an amazing job. The doctors, nurses and midwives have been exceptional in the treatment of my wife, myself, and our new baby. It's it leaves you speechless that these people turn up and do this job day in and day out with a passion, with selflessness, I think is the only way to describe it. It is absolutely amazing, and we really are so fortunate in the UK, and this is something that we really should be fighting for. It is I guess not a perfect organization, because no organization is perfect, but at its heart, at its core, and the values that it upholds, it's, there are no comparisons, and we are so lucky. So yes, a massive shout out and thank you to all those wonderful doctors and nurses, and of course to my wife for being so amazing through this whole process. Which means this is a double celebratory podcast. All of these things all coming together at once is fantastic. And witnessing the miracle of childbirth made me realize at a more practical level how we are all creative. We are created. We are unique. We have an intrinsic ability to develop and create amazing things. It is such a shame that many of these things are kind of taught out of us or normalized out of us as we go through life. We perhaps lose that inner childlike quality. And part of what this podcast is about is bringing back the inner child. And that doesn't mean running around, and it means that wonder, the wonder of being a child, the wonder, the questioning. Why do we stop questioning? Why do we stop playing? We are hopefully in this podcast all, creatives at our heart. But when did we stop playing? When did we stop taking time out to just play and have fun with our art? When did we stop questioning things? When did we stop looking up and wondering? Maybe some of you still do that. And I do like to think that there is an element of that still within me, this kind of childish notion of wonder, of sound. And that's what really, motivates me on a day-to-day basis. I love, and I've probably said this on many occasions on the pod, I've been on a journey since school of sonic exploration. I love the vibrations of air and how they can be music, how they can be sound, how they can make you happy, how they can make you sound, how they can transform your day, how they are intrinsic around us. I am a constant exploration to understand and better manipulate the air around us. And it is going to be a lifetime journey. I am fully aware of that, with all my qualifications and all of my experience. The thing is that the more I know about this subject, the more I realize there is to know. And that is what really excites me. And I hope that, to me, that is my childlike wonder. So my question to you is, what is your childlike wonder? Where can you bring that back? Can you go and spend half an hour just pondering, wondering like a child, or playing? Go and play with your art form. Do something that you wouldn't normally do because you're too focused on thinking that this needs to earn me money or this needs to be serious. Go and play. Go and try and remember what it was like to be a child, because I do believe that we are all unique. We all have this uniqueness that we need to celebrate. And it feels that in the big wide world, going back to where I started this podcast ranting on about, the nature of capitalism and corporatism, kind of making us all lab rats to a certain extent. And again, I'm not going to get into politics here. It's not about the wrongs or the right. It's just the fact that the very nature of the way things are now, we lose some of our aspiration. We use some of our uniqueness. We are, in a sense, numbers. We are, in a sense, just workers. And when it comes to creativity, as we see, there's perhaps a lot of examples of where we are coalescing and consolidating ideas. Everything is very, very similar. There are not so many bold ideas out there being put into the world because we've lost perhaps a bit of our uniqueness, or we are scared to show our uniqueness to the world because we think it's not in line with what's currently common. So believe in your uniqueness. Try and create something today or this week which is totally unique to you. Don't think about what anyone else is saying. Don't think about the inner critic. Forget the inner critic. Let them go off and have a holiday this week. Just create something that perhaps you will never show to another person, but it is representative of your unique spirit and your inner child. On that note, I want to thank you so much for being with me on this ride. We're not giving up now. We've got 200 podcasts to get to next. It's going to be a really exciting journey. I do hope that you will come along for the ride. I really, really thank you for listening to my podcast. I'd also like to thank those who send me messages of support. That's really welcome, and it's good to know that you are out there listening. I'm not going away. Here's to the next 100. Thank you so much. Take care, my friends, and I will catch you later.